Candida, 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 Candida. For those of you who have been in the holistic medicine information education domain long enough, I'm sure you have come across someone somewhere talking about how Candida is an issue, right? And blogs and podcasts and videos and forums about Candida and how Candida causes leaky gut and gut issues and autoimmunity and eczema and asthma and you fill in the blank, right? And I'm sure some of you have done Candida cleanses that have gone on for a very, very long time. And then you find the Candida comes back. Or you took a whole bunch of herbs and then you kind of got rid of it, but not really. And then you have to keep taking the herbs because it never goes away. And that was my experience. So I jumped on this Candida bandwagon somewhere around 6 to 8 years ago. And it was like, oh my God, Candida is such an issue. I need to take care of this. I need to learn what to do to get rid of it because it's such a big problem. And I would be testing the poop and finding Candida and treating Candida and doing all of these things until I was like, why doesn't this darn thing go away? And it would just keep rearing its ugly head. And then I started getting smart enough to ask the question, well, why the heck does this happen? And then people are like, well, it's antibiotics. It's all the antibiotics. And I'd ask people like, so have you been taking 1 million antibiotics? Is your kid taking 1 million antibiotics? And they're like, no, we've never taken an antibiotic in our life. But it has to be the antibiotic in the foods. So are you eating really like non-organic, like antibiotic filled like meats? No, we eat like super clean, organic, everything. Oh, it must be the non-organic grains. It must be the pesticides. So are you eating a lot of wheat? No, we're gluten-free. Are you eating other stuff that has? No. Our diets are super clean. I'm like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense, right? And where I'm going with this is a lot of times, even in our holistic medicine world, we're so quick to jump on something and say, there is Candida in the poop. And therefore we must treat it because this kid has eczema. And if they have Candida, then the Candida must be causing the eczema. So I'm going to get rid of it. And this is what I used to do. Until I got to a place where I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense because if someone hasn't had 1 million antibiotics and they haven't had this and they haven't had that, then where is this Candida coming from? And this is one of the things that we fail to do. We fail to ask the really hard questions to say, what caused this thing in the first place? Because yeah, you can treat the second layer hoping that things will get better. And sometimes they do momentarily until things kind of fall apart. And the patients that I see are the ones that tend to fall apart and they've seen 15 other people and they've tried 1 million different things and they're like, nothing has really worked. Can you figure it out? And for the last 2 years, I've kept asking myself, why is it that some people have these ridiculous amounts of Candida in their stool, except there's no history to really make it make sense? And it didn't click in my head until I came across this one article written by this amazing researcher, and all of this will be in the captions. And basically the article called To Be a Pathogen or Not, Candida, the story of Candida, it talks about how Candida, like most other microorganisms in our gut, is actually highly attuned. The Candida is highly attuned to its environment. And it turns out that when the environment is stressed, and in the case of Candida, when there is mast cell activation, the mast cells, when they're activated, which is usually a sign of an inflammatory response, it triggers the Candida to grow. Literally, the Candida is like, oh, there's a party going on. Let me get my act together. Let me get going. It becomes invasive. So the Candida that's sitting there chilling is like, oh, God, it's such a nice day. I think I'm just going to lay on my couch and just stare at TV. Maybe I'll have a drink. It's just chilling. It doesn't have a care in the world. It's just relaxing. It's not there to cause problems. That benign Candida all of a sudden becomes invasive. It sends out these little tendricles that actually penetrate the tissue. it becomes a true pathogen. So it goes from being a colonizer, and all of us have Candida. For anyone who thinks they are free of Candida, they are completely fooling themselves, because every single human being is colonized with all of these microorganisms. It is the ratio, their balance, that is key. And for any of you guys that are interested, I mentioned him before. Dr. Emron Meyer out of UCLA is my hero, because this guy is so damn smart. And part of what he talks about is, no, silly, it's the ratio of all the microorganisms that's most important. And it's the behavior of the microorganisms that's important. And part of why all of you who have done the 15 million year Candida cleanse have never really gotten very far, or you got very far and the moment you stopped, the Candida came back. Guess what? You didn't get rid of it. You momentarily suppressed it. So what causes the mast cells, right? If mast cells and the inflammation they cause activates the Candida, makes it aggressive, and it causes the Candida to replicate, I believe, like mad. So the Candida is like, oh, let's start making babies. Let's go at this. If the mast cells cause the Candida to become aggressive, cause it to be invasive, cause it to start replicating, which is what I see in the stool studies, what the hell trips up the mast cells, right? Because that is actually the most important question for us to be asking. It turns out that mold and mold spores are one of the most aggressive mast cell activators around. And it turns out that when we're in a really bad moldy environment, guess where spores go? Everywhere. They go into our mouth. They set up shop inside the gastrointestinal tract. And the molds activate the Candida, or the mast cells. And when they activate the mast cells, that mast cell activation is what causes the Candida to overgrow and become aggressive. And now you've got this cluster fill-in-the-blank mess that then causes a disastrous amount of inflammation and causes perpetual gut permeability and causes all kinds of strange issues. And why the typical treatment for Candida fails is because oftentimes we overlook what caused it. And guess what? Stool studies do not check for molds. We are not looking for molds in our stool studies. There's actually no way of detecting it. We're looking for Candida. We're looking for other things. We do not look for mold. Aspergillus, Penicillium, Stachyboitres, those ugly, ugly molds that are in the environment, we are not looking for them. And unless you do other tests, you completely miss them. So the Candida is kind of like the tip of the iceberg of the mess that's happening underneath. And when we look for the tip of the iceberg, we're like, oh, there's Candida, let me treat it. Except you've kind of missed the fact that there's a massive, ugly player behind the scenes that's kind of doing the puppet show up front. Yeah, you can treat the puppet show, but maybe you should actually treat the puppeteer. And part of what is so cool about all of this is when you start getting into the really, really kind of thick weeds of things, that is where the profound, true healing happens. And I've had kids who have had like a perpetual number of years of gut issues and they've done a million different things. And then once you get to the point of like, oh, look at that. You've got this. Let's treat this. All of a sudden, everything else just gets better. And all of a sudden, the gut issues that have been there a million years go away, and the asthma and eczema go away. But it wasn't because of the Candida. The Candida was making everything worse, for sure. Don't get me wrong. It's not like the Candida is totally benign. But when we treat the cause of the Candida, when you get to that root cause, all of a sudden, so many things start opening up. And a lot of you are like, God, Dr. K has just gone off the deep edge with mold. Like all he keeps harping about is mold. What's up with this dude, right? So I've got to tell you, in being in this field since, 2006, 2008, I kind of lost count. It's been a minute. I have never encountered anything as sinister or ugly or as prevalent. Vaccine injuries happen. They don't happen as often as we think. When the studies say that 5 to 20% of homes have mold, And as I started looking around, I'm like, holy Jesus, they're right. It's way more frequent than we realize. And some of you are like, God, stop this dark and gloomy kind of like, oh my God. I don't look at it at all like that. The more informed we become, the more aware we become, the more we're able to solve those weird challenges that have been irking us forever. If it's not you, chances are someone you know has weird memory issues that they couldn't explain. That it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just becoming forgetful. Or, oh yeah, my kid is just so space cadet-y. Like he's just got brain fog. What the hell is that? Or, yeah, I've got chronic fatigue and I don't understand why. Or my friend has fibromyalgia and I don't understand why. Or, God, I've got horrible gut issues that have been there like 15 years. And I've tried gluten-free, I've tried dairy-free, I've tried this, I've tried that. Autism, aggression, psychosis. A lot of the things that we look around and we're like, that makes no sense, that makes no sense, that makes no sense. And I'm not saying the mold is the cause of everything for everyone. Don't get me wrong. I'm not about that at all. What I am saying is that as we step back and peel apart the layers, and for those of you who have actually done stool testing and you saw gobs of Candida in your gut and you've had other weird things, step back, take a look. As we put the pieces together, and that's really all the purpose of this talk and all the talks that I do, as we put the pieces together, all of a sudden, the things that never made sense start making sense. And here's one fundamental truth that I believe in. Everything in the body happens for a reason. There's nothing that happens just arbitrarily. There is no coincidence as far as the human physiology is concerned. The body is the most incredible, beautiful, sophisticated system or machine that has ever been created. And we will continue to try to wrap our heads around it forever. But as we start getting into these systems biology, these fields of medicine that really force us to go way down deep into the elements of what makes us function, and you start piecing them together, you're like, oh, look, that happens, that happens, that happens, that happens, and all of these are related to this. And this is caused by this. And then you treat this, you support everything else, and then the seemingly miraculous thing happens. The kid that wasn't talking starts talking. The kid that has had a million years of gut issues suddenly doesn't. The kid that wasn't growing starts growing. The kid that lacked energy has energy. The kid that was weak and scrawny is now strong. And this goes for all of you adults. That whatever autoimmune disease, whatever other things you have, there are reasons for all of this. We just need to get to a place of sophistication where we can actually understand what the heck it's about and then do something to take care of it. So I hope that my talks are not causing any of you stress, because that's not my intention. My goal is not to cause unnecessary worry. It's to have us together start asking questions that we fail to ask normally. And by asking those questions, come up with answers that then you can actually do something about to increase your vitality and health and well-being. And that's what all of this is about, to help as many of you as possible be as healthy and vibrant as possible. So with that, I bid you farewell. Hang tight. We've got more videos coming talking about how to how to identify and ultimately do something about these molds and all the other stuff that we need to know. Be well. This is Dr. K.